Hi everyone, this is my video for the predicted sequence of events for the upcoming planet arrival. This is only my view, but I hope you can understand where I'm coming from with this, and then also look to sort of generally see how quickly things could unfold as well. So I've sort of put them down as a list, just roughly as to what I believe is roughly going to happen. So first of all, there's going to be a trigger of events. I don't believe this is going to be war related. It's not really in the interest of any of the parties to do this ahead of what's going to happen, unlike most wars which are fought to either go and pinch something from a country or just keep your arms industry going. There's going to be no point for quite a while after this, so that's not really relevant. I believe if you look at the amount of money that America owes and the value of the dollar, uh, they're waiting to that peak point when um, someone is going to say they've completely lost confidence in the dollar and they want all of their money back with the interest that's owed to them from another country. And it's very quickly going to sort of spiral out of control. So I reckon, so number two, there's just going to be a complete collapse of world trade. Stock markets are going to get wiped out to absolutely nothing, and that's going to happen extremely quickly within the space of probably a morning. You'll just wake up and you'll see the news, and it will literally be stock market prices falling and falling and falling. And they'll probably try and shut them in some countries, but it's not really going to be enough. So they might stop them for a short while, but it's not going to help the loss of confidence that's going to literally obliterate the value of the dollar to nothing. Because everything's still sort of based on the dollar, that's going to take out pretty much most of the Western world's sort of monies and currencies, and anyone that generally trades still anyway, it's generally going to bring most of the world to a stop. So with that, the banks are going to be in absolute turmoil. They're not going to want to give you your money or any credit. So unless you've got cash, anything on a piece of plastic you ain't going to get hold of. So sort of going to the shops and stuff, you're going to be stuck. Yeah, and even cash isn't going to be too helpful. Oil, because the money is going to dry up very quick, imports and exports of oil are going to very quickly come to an end as well. Most countries do not have many days of oil supply, so very quickly to the masses oil is going to run out. Saw it here a decade plus ago when refineries went on strike, the tanker drivers, and just queues of like up to a mile at some petrol stations just to fill up with fuel, and just panic then sets in. You're not going to be able to get anywhere, because that's going to stop the transport of food and stuff very quickly. The shops are very quickly, since they only stock a few days of food and all other goods, they're effectively going to have to sort of stop opening or sort of start trying to sort of ration based on what they'll be told by the governments to do. It's So I just had to pause there. It's going to hit a state of emergency. You're then going to see police, army, um, generally anything they can get their hands on the streets, trying to keep control of what's happening. Um, so I've heard things like traffic wardens in the UK being given pieces of paper to arrest people. I guess if you look at America, the amount of very heavily armoured police vehicles that seem to be cropping up, um, I can imagine it will be that way in quite a few places. Um, so they're going to declare this state of emergency, but because there's going to be such little food around and people are going to get desperate, riots are very quickly going to start to develop, sort of at this stage, which overall, even hitting this stage, might only be 3-4 days down the line or so. It's going to very rapidly develop into complete chaos. City's going to be the worst place. It will sort of start spreading out into the country, and people will be wanting to generally flee the cities, almost like refugees, but with nowhere to go really. Rest of the fuel's going to generally dry up, so any sort of fuel sources for emergency things, services, hospitals, that's going to dry up as well. So all of our sort of emergency services are effectively just going to cease to work. With that, the power as well. Transport for power to, if it's coal, well, I guess nuclear might still keep working for a while if the people are still actually deciding to man them. Guessing they'll probably be forced at gunpoint to keep doing that, but sort of coal power stations, gas, that sort of thing, it is generally going to stop. So there's going to be blackouts, and power and communications going to generally start to vanish completely. It's I'm not sure how long after this, but the climate's going to start to rapidly sort of change, but you're not going to be able to find the answers from anywhere because there's no power, so there's no big wide communication web. There might be rumours coming from places, potentially if people are still travelling around, this or that is happening. Then the second sun's going to appear in the skies, and by then it's going to be far too late. And then after the aftermath, the elites are going to sort of pop out of wherever they've been hiding, uh, if they're still alive, because of all the things they've been hoarding and supplying. They're going to offer everyone help, but well, after that, your reaction from people is as good as mine. Most people just same lemming thing as watching any other government, will just follow them and go, yeah, it's really good that you've helped me out after this. But you will get people who are going to be very cheesed off that the government must have known that this was coming, and it's all been set up. It's been the biggest false flag event ever, just to literally sort of go and hide from what's going to happen. So yeah, I base these ideas on current states of economies around the world, sort of all the money that, especially like the US, seems to just be sort of borrowing and spending somewhere. Certain things like German governments saying stock up on 10 days worth of food and water for some unknown event, which is a bit very wishy-washy. And then I think it was Ukraine as well that said that. So there are going to be countries out there that are going to try and help their population, but not much. Just literally give them the very sort of bare bone basics. Um, yeah, so can only wait and see how this unfolds. Um, Obviously, can't quite say when this is going to happen, but I honestly do believe it is going to sort of follow this line of events. So my thought is then this, and you can be either the prepared person or the unprepared person. Right, so let's just run through the prepared person. So the prepared person has got generally all his food, water, uh, spare petrol or diesel for vehicles, all ready. It's all ready to go. So when these events start happening, they can put their initial plan in place of getting everything prepared, ready for if they need uh, to leave and move to somewhere else, or to literally dig in and get ready for the end event. Um, so with their food and water ready, as it starts to collapse, they can try and get some extra food just like everyone else and sit there for a day or so. Um, just literally trying to stock up as best as possible. Um, Obviously, as well, they're going to have potentially a couple of hours extra in a supermarket if they're keeping their eyes on the news and the media as to what's going to happen, so they can get there a lot quicker. They could alert friends and family and stuff to what's going to happen by sort of text and social media, um, so they can sort of try and get some food and stuff. Um, they can then get to where their location is, as I said, sort of bunker down as in their location. Um, and then they're going to have a bit of time to sort of prepare and sort of make themselves ready. Um, I guess there's the unprepared person who is going to get really stuck and is going to be having to fight and chase food with possibly little to no money. They're then going to end up possibly having to walk to where they need to get to, or sort of having to sort of dig in with very little food and potentially not enough to make it through what's going to happen. Um, so they're going to spend far too much time doing what they should be doing right now. And then the very last person is the completely uninformed person, person that does not know that this is going to happen. Um, and they are generally going to follow this run of events. Unfortunately, things like being on the coast, like a lot of people not being far enough inland, um, not knowing to sort of dig your way underground to avoid the winds. They're not going to know all this, and so it's going to wipe out a lot more people than I think is probably expected. There'll probably be certain areas which are just completely vanished and just so gone that wouldn't have mattered anyway. But then there's always sparks of hope, isn't there? So I can imagine there's going to be areas where people are going to get very lucky, and things are going to still be standing, but uh, without food, warmth, food and water, and sort of medical supplies, it's soon going to turn very dire, um, and many more will then die, unfortunately, afterwards. Um, so yeah, I can only say think through all the different areas. So think of your planning. Think of almost like checklists. Think of how much food you've got, how much water you've got. Think to where you need to get to. Um, think when you're actually going to literally make that decision as to what you need to do, and make sure you make it at the right time. Don't hesitate and leave it too late. So if you need to get somewhere, don't hesitate, leave it too late, and there's just so much traffic or cars littered or sort of possibly even army checkpoints or something that you literally just cannot get through anywhere, and you're going to get stuck. Sort of food and water, make sure that literally you make that decision to go and grab that as fast as possible. If you've got things like sort of kids and stuff you need to go and grab from schools or generally anything, make sure you pick all of the best times for these and, well, do it at the right time. Just don't hesitate. Right, so I hope in some sense that's informative. Um, this is only my opinion of events. It could possibly go down the route of a war, um, but I don't think that's in the. I really don't think that's in the best interest, and it'll provide too much information to people wanting to know what's happening, and that's really not what is going to be intended. The key here is chopping off information, because if you can chop off electronics and media uh, very quickly, a lot of things will collapse. 'Cause no one will know what is going on and what to do. So on a much bigger scale, uh, things just won't happen. Right, so please leave your comments. Yeah.